bhagavate vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Natosmyaham taccharanam samiyusam. Bhavachidam swastyayanam sumangalam. Yo yatma maya vibhavam smaparyagat. Yatana basvantam atapare kuta. Word for word translation. Nataha. Let me offer my obeisances. Asmi. Am. Aham. I. Tat. The Lord's. Charanam. Feet. Samiyusam. Of the surrendered soul. Bhavachidam. That which stops repetition of birth and death. Svastyayanam. Perception of all happiness. Sumangalam. All auspicious. Yaha. One who. He. Exactly. Atma Maya. Personal energies. Vibhavam. Potency. Sma. Certainly. Paryagat. Cannot estimate. Yata. As much as. Nabha. The sky. Swantam. Its own limit. Ata. Therefore. Apare. Others. Kutaha. How. Now, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? And purport. It's a little long purport, but full of lots of nectar. Lord Brahma, the greatest of all learned living beings, the greatest sacrificer, the greatest observer of the austere life, and the greatest self-realized mystic, advises us as the supreme spiritual master of all living beings that one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord in order to achieve all success, even up to the limit of being liberated from the miseries of material life and being endowed with all auspicious spiritual existence. Lord Brahma is known as the Pitamaha, or the father's father. A young man consults his experienced father about discharging his duties, so the father is naturally a good advisor. But Lord Brahma is the father of all fathers. He is the father of Manu, who is the father of mankind all over the universal planets. Therefore, the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and would do well to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. His potencies are immeasurable, as confirmed in the Vedas. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate Svabhavika Jnana Bala Kriya Cha. He is the greatest of all and all others, even the greatest of all living beings, namely Brahmaji, admits that the best thing for us is to surrender unto him. Therefore, only those persons with a very poor fund of knowledge claim that they themselves are lords of all that they survey. And what can they survey? They cannot survey even the length and breadth of a small sky in one small universe. The so-called material scientists say that he would need to live 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of the universe, being carried by a Sputnik. This is also utopian because no one can be expected to live 40,000 years. Besides, when the space pilot returned from his travel, none of his friends would be present to receive him back as the greatest astronaut, as has become fashionable for modern bewildered scientific men. One scientific man, who had no belief in God, was very much enthusiastic in making plans for his material existence, and therefore opened a hospital to save the living. But after opening the hospital, he himself died within 6 months. So one should not spoil his human life, which is obtained after many, many changes of bodies in 8,400,000 species of life, simply for the concocted material happiness of life, through increasing artificial needs in the name of advancement of economic development and scientific knowledge. Rather, one should simply surrender unto the feet of the Lord to make a solution to all miseries of life. That is the instruction of Lord Krishna directly in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is the instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam by Brahmaji, the Supreme Father of all living beings. Anyone denying this surrendering process, as recommended both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and for that matter in all authorized scriptures, will be forced to surrender unto the laws of material nature. The living entity, by his constitutional position, is not independent. He must surrender either unto the Lord or unto material nature. Material nature is also not independent of the Lord, since the Lord himself has claimed material nature as Mama Maya, or my energy, Bhagavad Gita 7:14, and as me bina prakritir astada, or my separated energy in 8 divisions, Bhagavad Gita 7.4. Therefore, material nature is also controlled by the Lord, as he has claimed in Bhagavad Gita 9:10, Maya dyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Under my direction only is material nature working, and thus are all things moving. And the living entities, being superior energy to matter, have choice and discrimination, either by surrender unto the Lord or to surrender unto material nature. By surrendering unto the Lord, one is happy and liberated, but by surrendering unto material nature, the living entity suffers. So the end of all suffering means surrendering unto the Lord, because the surrendering process itself is bhava chidam, liberation from all material miseries, svastyayanam, perception of all happiness, and sumangalam, the source of everything auspicious. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such liberation and happiness are also unlimited, and they have been compared to the sky, although such liberation and happiness are infinitely greater than the sky. In our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude of greatness when it is compared to the sky. We fail to measure the sky, but happiness and liberty obtained in association with the Lord are far greater than the sky. That spiritual happiness is so great that it cannot be measured, even by the Lord himself, not to speak of others. It is said in the scriptures, Brahma sukyam tvanantam, spiritual happiness is unlimited. Here it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is that the Lord can measure it, but happiness in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again, and then again the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more. And as such, there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement, so much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Spiritual happiness is anandam buddhi vardhanam, or the ocean of happiness which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 4th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami has very nicely described this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness in the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam and obtain some purification from it. That purport is so full of amazing realizations from Srila Prabhupada that I'd like to speak about it a little later in my class, but to begin with, just for the sake of getting some context of this verse, just like to speak a little bit about the lead up to it and how Lord Brahma has come to this point of telling Narada about the importance of surrendering to the lotus feet of Lord Hari. So if we go way back to the previous chapter, chapter 5, we'll see that Narada is asking Lord Brahma, his father, and the father of all fathers, he's asking him, he's saying, you are so supremely powerful, you're so capable of creating so many things in this material universe. You've done such amazing austerities and have these mystic powers. Are you, in fact, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? I guess Narada knows that Krishna is, but for the sake of Lord Brahma explaining to him and to us, he asks such questions. And so, but Narada also asks, following that question, he says, well, I know that you've gained all of these abilities due to your due to your performance of austerities. So there must be a power greater than you who is awarding you these abilities. And then Lord Brahma, with all humility, he straight away says, yes, there is a supreme power beyond me who gives me the knowledge in my heart to know how to create the material manifestation. And that personality is Krishna. And then he goes on to explain the universal form of Krishna, or the Purusha, which is what this chapter, chapter 6, is called, Purusha Shukta confirmed. So there's a number of verses which are very much in line with, in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is explaining his own universal form, he uses the examples of how the different material manifestations are the bodily limbs of the universal form. So for instance, the trees are the hairs on the universal form's body. And from text 1 to 12 in chapter 6, he's explaining, the back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. And the Lord's arms are the productive fields for the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass. So Lord Brahma is confirming that that Krishna is the universal form who creates all material manifestations. And therefore he's in line with all the other Vedic hymns and spiritual literature, which is saying this. So that's why this chapter is called Purusha Shukta Confirmed. And so by sort of towards the beginning of chapter 6, Lord Brahma has established this. And so then for the rest of the chapter, he's explaining what Narada and us should do with this knowledge. So, and this is the difference between spiritual knowledge and mundane knowledge, is that with spiritual knowledge there's always the jnana, so we come to know the fact, but then there's always something to be done with that knowledge, so that's vijnana, so that's realized knowledge. There's always an activity, and that's sometimes explained in the process of sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. So sambandha is knowing what our relationship with Krishna or Hari is. Then it doesn't end there. Then there's a process, there's an activity that we do in order to reach the ultimate goal, which is to, rekindle our eternal relationship with him, with Krishna, through the process of devotional service. So Lord Brahma then goes on to explain what that process of devotional service is. And he mentions, initially he goes into sacrifice. So what we do once we know that Krishna is the Purusha, we have to offer him something, we have to offer him sacrifice. But what can we really offer him if he's the Purusha and he owns everything? He's the proprietor of everything. So we basically offer him back all of his energies. And this is also the concept of, when we're on the altar, the pujari is offering all the different elements back to Krishna. So the chamara fan, the pujari is offering Krishna back air, and incense is said to be offering Krishna earth. And so like that, there's a number of different items that we offer. And in the Bhagavad Gita as well, Krishna says, even if you offer me something so simple as a leaf or flower, water, fruit, it's the consciousness, it's the devotion behind it that he's accepting. And then if we go one step further, so that's in terms of worship, they're the items that we would offer Krishna back. But the ultimate sacrifice in this age of Kali Yuga is Sankirtan. And Prabhupada mentions that in one of the purports. I think it's like 25 or 26 or something. He mentions that this is the main yajna that we offer Krishna, is the chanting of the Mahamantra, congregational chanting of the Mahamantra. And this is confirmed in the verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalu Nastyeva, 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 Gatir Anyata. which is, in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord, chanting the holy name of the Lord, chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. So that's basically the passage about sacrifice. And then the other process of devotional service that Lord Brahma explains to Narada is surrender, and that's where we're up to now. So that's the verse that we are reading today. 36 is where Lord Brahma is introducing surrender, the concept of surrender to Lord Hari. So it's not necessarily surrender to the Purusha as such, the universal form. Lord Brahma's gone one step further to say that even beyond, even above the Purusha is Lord Hari. And so he's the one that we're trying to serve in this way, through sacrifice, through surrender. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about surrender. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of his potencies. And this idea or sentiment is echoed in all of the literature, in Bhagavad Gita, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Nectar of Devotion. All the books we read are saying exactly the same thing, confirming this, that don't even waste your time trying to understand Krishna and everything about Krishna, because not even, as it says later in the purport, not even Krishna can understand everything about Krishna, because it's constantly expanding, it's dynamic. He is dynamic. So really, the main thing we have to do is focus on that act of surrender. And so that, most people would then ask, so how do I surrender? Is it a one-off thing? Do I just wake up in the morning and say, okay, I surrender to you, Krishna? But then naturally, because we're so conditioned, and throughout the day we're going to surrender to Maya in different ways as well. So we have to re-surrender and re-surrender. But luckily, all our acharyas and Krishna himself has given us a very detailed process of how we can surrender to him, an authorized process. And I was listening to one class by Romapad Swami in relation to surrender, and it's kind of a funny example, but he was saying how he was in Mayapur, and there's this parrot that lives in Mayapur in a cage, and the parrot, the devotees, of course, they've taught the parrot how to say Haribol and Sri Radhe. So the parrot's always, whenever any devotee walks past, he's saying Haribol, Haribol, But then one day there was a big hailstorm. It was the change of season, and there were hailstones, the size of big balls, and just falling from the sky. And the parrot was so scared. It was so nervous. And so it just started squawking, it forgot how to say Haribol, it forgot how to say Sri Radhe. So in the same way, if we just go through the external motions of devotional service and say the right things, it's not going very deep. We're kind of on a mechanical parrot platform. But then when things, as they do inevitably, when things go wrong for us and we're stuck in these situations where we really need help, Krishna's not the one that we take shelter of. We just freak out, and we can't even think about Krishna. So Maharaj was giving this humorous example to really stress the importance of the internal aspect of devotional service and our relationship with Krishna. And so in the second paragraph of this purport, that's what Srila Prabhupada explains, that it's just our nature to serve something, and we have to surrender to someone, and we have no choice, because we're not independent, we're dependent by nature, but where we do have the choice is who we surrender to. So we can choose to surrender to the material energy or to Krishna. And basically, if we surrender to the material energy, we know that that's going to lead to suffering. But if we are constantly surrendering to Krishna, Prabhupada, in the verse, it explains that we will, not that we're doing it necessarily to achieve anything like liberation or anything like that, but automatically we will achieve three things, which are bhava chidam, which is cutting the knot of all material miseries, svasyayanam, which is experiencing the unlimited happiness, and sumangalam, which is experiencing all auspiciousness. And auspiciousness is that which is beneficial to everyone and everything. So it's pretty clear who we should choose based on those choices. And then in the third and the fourth paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains that even once we do surrender to Krishna, as Lord Brahma and as even Krishna himself says, it still doesn't mean we're going to understand Krishna. So we can't really do it with the intention of trying to understand Krishna. Our intention is more, I surrender unto you because I love you, and I want to serve you. So, and I think if we look at it, our relationship with Krishna in the same way we'd look at our relationship, whether it's our parents, our friends, our siblings, our partners, just naturally, if you see someone approaching you and they want to get to know you, but they're kind of doing it in a real analytical way, like they just want to know every little detail about your life, but not for the purpose of learning how to love you more. It's sort of, you're not really going to reveal much about yourself to them, because it's a bit weird. But in this way, if we just wanting to understand enough about Krishna to know how to serve him nicely, what he likes, who he spends time with, what he does during his day, just because we enjoy hearing about those things and it helps us in our service, then we get access to that confidential knowledge, which is bhakti, and then we can go further in our Krishna consciousness. So this process of surrender is it's a really nice topic to meditate on and to go deep into, and there's so much literature and so many prayers from the acharyas which help us to slowly, gradually become more surrendered to Krishna. And one of those is Sanatana Goswami's Hari Bhakti Vilas, and in there he explains the 6 limbs or characteristics of surrender, which are humility. First of all, we need humility to surrender to Krishna. And then full self-surrender, which is Atma Nivedanam, so offering everything, body, mind, words, to Krishna. And then the third one is accepting the Lord as one's guardian or master. Fourth is firm conviction that Krishna will give all protection. 5 is rejecting unfavorable things to devotional service. And 6, accepting those things which are favorable to devotional service. And in there he also gives the example that one should surrender to the Lord like an animal purchased from the market surrenders to its master. Such an animal never thinks of his maintenance because he knows his master will always look after him. And so there's also the beautiful Saranagati prayers by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which Bhakti Charu Swami has made an album of, which is just so beautiful to listen to and read the lyrics. It goes through the whole process of surrender in depth, in detail, in beautiful in poetry. So that's about all that I had to talk about today. But if there's anything I've missed or anything the senior devotees would like to expand on, open it up now.
I don't really have a question in my dad, but I think we can keep going. We're taught in Bhagavad Gita that you have to understand Krishna. Once you understand Krishna, you can attain him. Now we hear in this verse, it's not possible to understand because you can't even understand yourself. So how do we deal with this idea that we have to, I've even heard Srila Prabhupada say we have to fully understand Krishna. But then in the next sentence he says it's not possible to understand Krishna. Can you elaborate on that, please?
I guess we have to understand him to a certain degree. We have to understand that he is the Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in terms of, through philosophical speculation or through austerities or through anything of our own doing, it's never going to be possible to understand him in full. So I guess we try to understand him to a certain point, but beyond that, it's not necessary or possible.
So, Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned that if you seek to know the transcendental appearance and disappearance of Krishna, you're eligible for liberation. So it's not necessarily that Krishna says that you need to know everything, because obviously he knows it's not possible. It's mentioned here in this verse. Even the Lord himself isn't able to estimate his own limits. But he's just giving some hint. If you just know a little bit about my activities, that's enough. So that's what it gives hope, that we think there's so much to know, so much to learn, but we just have to know a little bit. It's like the 9 costs of devotional service. We're not advised to be perfect in all of them, even just one of them is enough. And our sort of perfection in that sense can be achieved by just focusing on just one aspect. So Krishna is very kind. He's not asking so much, and whatever we do, he says he rewards us accordingly. So I think sometimes we're a little bit hard on ourselves, that we think, we're so far away from where we'd like to be, but it's not possible to, artificially sort of achieve such a high post, but Krishna appreciates whatever effort we put into. Nice class, thank you.
Regan, did you have a question?
Thank you, class. So you said, you mentioned Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's injunction, which is that in the age of correlative prophecy, the means of deliverance and self-realization is chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name. It is not holy. So we've done a lot of other things. Can you talk a little bit about this point?
You mean that there's still other services that we're doing?
Yeah.
As in, should we not just be chanting, going on Harinam all day, every day?
Yeah, or even so much that, like, predominantly we should be doing such an activity.
Well, I guess we do chant quite a lot every day. We have our prescribed number of rounds that we do and do as much kirtan. We have the artis during the day. I can't remember where I read it, but I suppose because we're not on that fully transcendental platform yet, we still need to be, how to explain it? It's similar to if that's the only thing we need to do, then why do we even need a spiritual master? Why do we need all these other aspects of devotional service? Why not just chant all day, every day? But because we're not chanting purely just yet, there are other activities that we can do to be, like you've got a train track and you've got two different, what do you call it? Paths which strengthen each other. So, and then naturally we live in a community of devotees and we have deities and there's always services to be done, which purify us to get us to the point where we can chant more purely. So I guess it's a work in progress until we get to that point where we can, be like Haridas Thakur and just sit in one spot and chant all day, every day. But if we tried that now, we'd probably be, externally chanting, but maybe the mind is somewhere else. I don't know, that's just my initial answer to that question. If Shastra or anyone has anything else to add?
Thank you for the advice. Just to add to Prabhu's, is that we chanting the holy names not just for our benefit, but for glorifying Krishna himself, trying to please him. So chanting is the most prominent, obviously, the most important part of the worship service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam is very important. But you also have to realize, while we perform worship service, that the holy name has to be served, not enjoyed. We have to please the holy name. And our very body belongs to Krishna for his pleasure. So, through the guidelines and instructions of the spiritual master, we serve Krishna. We serve the holy name. So we cannot artificially create an exalted platform of just chanting the holy names. Ultimately, from an advanced devotee point of view, adhikari point of view, everything is chanting. Every aspect of devotional service is chanting. Even here, Srimad Bhagavatam is chanting.
Book distribution is chanting. Prabhupada actually confirmed that many times. It's also kirtana. Harinama is also kirtana. Sometimes book distribution is even more kirtana than the Harinama. Brihat Mridanga, greater Mridanga. So we have to see that from that light, that every aspect of devotional service ultimately is to please the Holy Name and His representations. So Holy Name is not for our pleasure, although we may experience pleasure by the mercy of the Lord. So we have to serve Krishna. And then at some point, if we have the opportunity or come to the point of very exalted chanting, you may sit down in one place in the Holy Name, in Holy Dhamma, Parrot, Govardhana, and chant the Holy Name without any other activity.
Thank you.
Yeah, in relation to what you said, exactly, we don't feel we're not ready to be doing that, but at the same time it comes to my mind that also there are two types of devotees, which is Vajanandi and the other one is and that one is so we're part of the project of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to promote the Mahamantra to every town and village in the planet. So you can't do that by just sitting and chanting 24/7. And also I read Prabhupada that he was saying that every single activity that we do is to support the Mahamantra, to give you a taste of the mantra. So if you don't read, if you don't give the knowledge, you don't get, you can be there chanting 24/7. You will not, according to Prabhupada and our philosophy, you don't get the taste for the Mahamantra just by singing yourself. Every time I hear the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's about all the branches of the tree of Lord Chaitanya, how they expand the knowledge of Krishna and the mantra. So by sitting there, how would you clean this place or cook, or even those people who come from Krishna village that they're interested in this philosophy, they do it in a gradual way. So how would you support all those activities if you just chant it, isn't it? So that's what came to my mind.
Thank you.
Just to support that, what you say, Krishna. Yeah, it says in Bhagavatam, Brahma Sampradaya, all the devotees follow Lord Krishna under this line, the Parampara, are eager to broadcast the glories of the Lord to all of the fallen creation souls. That's the nature of our Sampradaya. So when Prabhupada started, pushing this, it was like the devotees were going out on Sankirtan, so the Harinam Sankirtan, so they were doing bhajan in public. So the chanting for Krishna in the midst of all these people who are absent, from the sound vibration of the Holy Name. So they get the opportunity to hear Krishna's glories and see firsthand the result of serving the Lord in loving devotion. So I'm just saying that there's not really a difference between bhajan and Krishna.
There is a difference. Bhajanamandi, like official dasapati, chant 24/7, they do nothing, they don't preach, they just chant. So here we are preaching.
So I think we'll leave it here and we can continue the discussion at breakfast. Thank you everyone. Hare Krishna.